point 4, point 5 in Plot Your Next 15 Moves was about having enemies. Now, do you think the bigger you become, the more enemies you attract? And in that video, you also mentioned it's almost part of the journey. Is it inevitable to have enemies?
Yeah, it is. It's so funny you say that. Last night we were having sushi with myself, Adam, Mario, and Kai, and we were talking about enemies. And I said the challenge about enemies is the following: there are certain enemies that you can only avoid by not being relevant and not competing in a marketplace. So if you don't want to have any enemies, just don't do anything. Just play small and just live a regular, average, and ordinary life. But if you do that, your biggest enemy becomes the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror, because your spirit is furious with you for you not wanting to give your best. So there's nobody worse that's going to be your enemy than yourself. Now, let's talk about the second kind of enemies. You decide to go into real estate. You decide to be a podcaster. You decide to go and do insurance, investment, stocks, bonds, digital media. You decide to go into pharmaceutical sales. You decide to do, engineer coding. And you want to be the best at it, one of the best at it. You go in. You're going to piss people off because you're going to take market share away, attention away, eyeballs away. They're going to bring up your name. Some of the old timers are going to hear about your name. They hate being compared to you. They hate saying, well, how about this new guy? Oh, they hate it, right? They can't stand it because you're taking that away. You can't avoid that. That part you cannot avoid. Now, then there's the third kind. The third kind are the kind of enemies that should be avoided, but you, due to self-inflicted comments or things you did, you created those enemies. Now, if they're intentional, more power to you. For example, let's just say if Meghan Markle goes out there and says what she says, and she intentionally wants the royal family to be her number one enemy because she wants to get 100 million plus views so she can get that $110 million contract with Netflix to set up her next career. Now she's living in Montecito next to Oprah Winfrey and everybody else. Well, you knew what you were doing and it was intentional. But if you're not doing it intentionally, you just made a mistake and gave birth to 7 new enemies that you could have avoided. You have to be careful of creating those enemies. And I will tell you this, the most dangerous types of people you'll ever face. Most people think, oh my gosh, I have to worry about that guy that's working so hard. I have to worry about that guy. I have to worry about that visionary. You don't have to worry about those guys at all. The people you have to worry about as competitors and enemies are extremely ambitious, lazy people. Those who are extremely ambitious, they think big, okay? They think very highly of themselves. Like, you even see them walking around like a little bit pompous, arrogant. You're like, why do you look at me like you think you're better than me? You haven't done anything crazy with your life. But in their mind, they're better than everybody else. They're ambitious, right? But deep down inside, they don't want to put in the work. They think big. They're visionaries. They have big ideas. They're talented. They just don't want to work hard. If there's any kind of enemies you don't want to give birth to, are the lazy, ambitious people. Those guys will haunt you for the rest of your life. They're very weird people on how they are. Everybody else, you can't avoid some of the people you compete. It's going to be normal.